We've a lot to catch up on. Today, in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about where I have been, what I have been up to, which will include a recent big move that I made. We will address some reasons why I made this move, and third, where I ended up. Let's get started. For the past few years or longer, I have felt the desire to move. I had no idea where to, but I was searching for where I could move to once I left the area. I searched all over the U.S., from Florida to Missouri to Colorado. I took trips across the country, exploring areas that I haven't visited before, looking for a new place where I can call home. I investigated alternate ways of living too, as I was open to doing life differently than to collect things to store in my house. I looked into tiny home living. I looked into RV life, which has quadrupled over the past couple of years. I researched living abroad, the requirements, the process, and for those who have made it happen. And then I listened to my heart after all my searching and decided to make the big move. And in this episode, we're going to talk about it. I looked into Portugal, which had recently become a very popular country to move to. You see, I needed a change, and I needed one in a big way. The city life had got to me. The city I lived in for decades had changed, or maybe it was I that changed. I no longer was enthralled with the fast pace of life and no longer was needing to fill up my calendar with endless events around town. I was seeking something different, a different pace, a different culture, perhaps. Now, Texas will always have a special place in my heart. In fact, many are choosing to relocate to the state and are selecting cities like Dallas-Fort Worth and Austin and other cities in Texas. People are coming from everywhere to make it home. While they are wanting in, I was wanting out. After researching for years, probably going back 5 years or more, I boarded a plane to take an exploratory visit to Mexico. What happened next may shock you. I absolutely loved it. I felt safe. I was able to dust off my Spanish, and it resurfaced my curiosity to learn about a new culture and a different way of life. I was beyond excited. People were friendly, something I was not used to from my big city life. I was able to interact with ease. I didn't sense I was being manipulated or exploited in Mexico. It was like a breath of fresh air. People seemed genuine and supportive. Was I living in a cloud or fog? I felt welcomed. People were patient with me, interacted with me, and I felt included even though I was a foreigner. I didn't expect to like it that much. I now see the lure to Mexico. Now, I didn't decide right away that I would move to Mexico after my exploratory trip, but it was a huge contender. I thought about it a lot when I returned home and made several pro-con lists. Ultimately, I decided to move forward with applying for a Mexico residency card so it could open the door to Mexico as an option. Now, there are several ways to enter Mexico if you are not a citizen. One is a tourist visa. Second is a residency card. In 2021, Mexico changed the time frame for the tourist visa, and it was no longer guaranteed to receive 180 days. It was up to the immigration officer upon arrival, which many were receiving less than 180 days. I wanted to establish residency, which means to apply for a temporary residency, which is renewed annually, and after 4 years, I can become a permanent resident. So after my residency card was approved, I went through a series of steps and events to leave the USA and make the move to Mexico on a permanent basis. So when I say I was ready for change, I was ready. I was ready to move to Mexico. I had decided this was the way I was going to go. So this change may sound abrupt to you, but it's been a change that has been in the works for many years. It's odd, but when I purchased my home, I thought about it then that I wanted to live abroad. I decided to take a big step and to move forward with something that I have wanted to do for a long time. So I began the series of preparations that I needed to do in order to make this move happen. Some of those items were: 1, applying for and getting approved with a temporary residency with a Mexican consulate. 2, downsizing and selling my home. 3, holding an estate sale and selling most of my possessions. 4, moving remaining items into storage. And 5, deciding where in Mexico to start my new adventure. You see, I was thrilled. I was excited, but yet I was nervous at the same time. I didn't know where I was going to land exactly. So after conducting my own estate sale and putting the rest in storage, I boarded a plane to Guadalajara, and from there ended up in the Lake Chapala area. I accepted a house sit or a pet sit for approximately 2 months or so I could not only take care of animals, which I adore, but to learn about a new city and area. Now, if you'd like to learn more about pet sitting in Mexico, I have a link in the description below. Now, Lake Chapala is a popular expat community with many foreigners from Canada and the United States. English is widely spoken, and it's a hot spot for many retirees. It's right on the largest lake in Mexico, which is a big draw to the area. After 2 months of pet sitting for a great family, I had to make a decision if I was going to stay in the area or if I was going to move and explore another area of Mexico. What was I going to do? So I decided to start looking for an apartment in the area within my budget. I was absolutely stunned with what I found. I found a perfect casita for me on absolutely stunning grounds. After seeing the place for the first time, I was all in. I signed a lease, and I love it. Now, I can go into more detail on this if you'd like, and or do another video on this. Drop a comment below on what questions you may have. I can talk about the process for obtaining temporary or permanent residency, local contacts, the process and contacts for insurance while here, local drivers and taxis, how to find a place to rent, and more. I am still learning and getting acquainted, but if you have thought about leaving the USA, exploring Mexico, and are seriously considering it, I'd love to be a resource for you. I share this recent chain of events for several reasons. 1, you may feel something needs to change in your life. It could be a relationship, it could be your country, it could be an environmental change. One thing that happened during the most recent events is that many started to gain a new perspective. Many eyes were opened and people started to see things they never saw before. You may be afraid to move forward, but let me encourage you to make the move when ready at a time that is right for you. Second, the change may be big and could require many steps. After I decided to sell my house, which was one big decision, I was faced with about 10,000 other smaller decisions afterward. Some, too, made me question my original decision. Third, we may be accustomed to being the frog in the water. We may see the water start to simmer, but we may tell ourselves that we are okay and it's just a simmer. So are you the frog in the water? May this episode be a tool to allow you to increase the questioning of events around you and to encourage you to move forward when the time is right for you. Now, I've shared a lot in this episode, and it's a little different from my others. Drop a comment below, let us know what you think, drop some questions, give us a like, and subscribe to be part of the journey.